I'm here with David Borla, and you are one of the founders of Borla, is that right?
Actually, I'm not. I'm the second generation.
You're the second generation.
Yes,
so how long has Borla been around?
Since I was 4 years old, so it would have been pretty impressive if I founded it at 4. Although Mozart wrote his first symphony at 3, so you never know.
Cool.
My parents founded it in 1978 in Brooklyn, New York, and here we are today, still going strong.
Awesome. So I'm here with the Supra, obviously. What are your plans for the new 2020 Supra?
So this is a special car. It has a history and a heritage, and you know, it's about more than just trying to distribute parts, right? There's going to be a lot of tension on this car, and so there are a lot of nice exhaust systems already available. So this is an opportunity for us to kind of flex our muscles a little bit and show what we're capable of, and you know, we really kind of want to go toe to toe with the best in the world. And this is a chance for us to do it. I mean, the stock exhaust itself is pretty good to begin with, so we got our work cut out for us, and we're really looking forward to digging in and getting into it.
I always associate Borla with like a pretty unique exhaust sound. How do you put that together? Like, how do you create that unique sound when you're working with so many different kinds of cars?
We have 4 or 5 different patents that we've developed over the years. Some for sound cancellation, some for amplifying specific frequencies. So we have the ability to do virtually anything possible through our own patented technology, which obviously kind of gives us a chance to do something with a little bit of a different flavor. But ultimately it comes down to, from a sound perspective, how loud is it going to be? What is the note going to be? Are there objectionable frequencies? Obviously it can't drone. In this case, it's an active exhaust, so you have 2 different positions. It's like 2 exhaust systems in one. So we need to make sure that they're really perfect throughout the entire RPM range in any driving circumstances, right? We don't just want something that's going to sound great at wide open throttle from outside the car, right? It also has to sound good when you're lugging the motor up a hill, inside the car, and in any driving circumstances, different altitudes and different humidities and temperatures. Our philosophy is to go after something that's really going to be perfect in all across the board, and still very aggressive with an aftermarket sound, and you know, that's kind of our thing. Now, of course, power is going to be very important. We need to make sure that we relieve as much restriction as possible and bring out the best performance from the engine through the entire RPM range. Once again, not just under wide open throttle, but making power all through the RPM range, particularly you know, at low RPMs is very important too, right? Most of us are not at red line all day long. So we want to make power throughout the RPM range. And then aesthetics are going to be very important for this car. So we're going to offer different tip styles, you know, to create a different look from the rear, depending on what your style is. And then the exhaust system itself, even though you can't see it once it's on the car, you know, the way it looks coming out of the box has become very important as well. And one thing I forgot about sound is we will offer multiple sound levels. So in addition to having an active exhaust, we'll have for sure an attack and an S-type as well. So in the loud position, one will be louder than the other.
How do you do that? What's the difference between the attack and the S-type? Is that like another valve, or how does that work?
It's just going to be a different muffler strategy. In many cases, I'm not sure how familiar you are with our technology, but we have been incorporating what we call multi-core technology for over 2 decades. And our attack patent and our polyphonic or organ pipe patent are both based on the multi-core technology, and it basically involves numerous tubes inside the exhaust system at different diameters and lengths that bring out different frequencies and cancel different frequencies. So it's not just that the attack is going to be louder than the S-type, but the attack is going to have more of a raw, kind of a mid-range sound to it, whereas the S-type is going to be a little bit warmer and have some more warmth and low end to it.
So basically 2 different types of mufflers depending on the application and what the end user really wants.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's the key, is really trying to figure out what the end users are looking for. And as we know, everybody's looking for something a little bit different. So, you know, we may even do something with the front pipe that kind of in combination with the rear, you know, does some different things. And, you know, typically we have numerous part numbers that you can kind of mix and match to get different sounds, but we're not there yet. We haven't even started working on it yet.
So, I mean, one of the things that, you know, there's sort of a common misnomer with exhaust is that, you know, bigger is better, like more pipe, wider pipe is better, but is that really the case?
Again, it really comes down to what kind of driving you're doing. Typically, a larger pipe is going to flow more air. So when you get up to high RPMs and you're really pushing a lot of air, it's going to be less restrictive than a smaller pipe. But what people miss is that A pipe that's too large can actually create back pressure. People think that a larger pipe automatically relieves back pressure, and that if a car doesn't perform as well with a larger pipe, that means it needs back pressure. That is never the case. So what happens with a larger pipe is you actually create turbulence. There's greater friction because it's a larger pipe. So the exhaust gases actually don't exit as quickly. Really, what you're trying to do with an exhaust system from a power perspective is get the gas out the tailpipe as quickly as you can. So if you imagine, I'm going to use an extreme example, like a 5-foot drain pipe, right? Mm-hmm. And you try to trickle a little bit of water through this 5-foot drain pipe, right? It's actually going to take a long time for it to get out the end, right? It's going to kind of pool and puddle, and it's not going to go out, right? Whereas if you use a smaller hose, like a garden hose, right, the right amount of water going through, it will exit faster. Another example that people use is simply putting your finger over the end of a garden hose when the water's just sort of trickling out, right? So right. And because an exhaust system doesn't change diameter, through different driving conditions, you're trying to find the perfect combination of diameters that's going to keep the exhaust gas velocity up, like putting your finger over it, and also handle the mass of because the exhaust gases have mass. So it's not as simple as just, if that was the case, every race car would have the biggest possible exhaust pipe that it can. But if you've seen race cars, a lot of them have small exhaust pipes on them for that reason.
Right, so velocity is important, obviously.
Extremely important, yes.
I've also driven a lot of cars that have drone, and it seems to be sometimes difficult to sort of tune that out. What's your approach to dealing with drone?
With all due respect, in all fairness, it's really not that difficult to tune it out. Technology's been around for a long time. It's more of a commitment from the manufacturer and the engineers as to whether they want to go through the time and effort to actually do it, and the cost. Typically, it's going to wind up as a more expensive product. So in a lot of cases, manufacturers just want to put a universal muffler on and make something inexpensive, but that's not the Borla way. The Borla way is to, we eliminate drone with anything and everything, application specific anyway. So it really comes down to sound cancellation, and it's pretty simple. You identify the dominant frequency, and you use science to tune it out. There are a couple different ways to do it. Most of the technology goes back to the 1800s, if you can believe it. It's really not anything new. I think where maybe it gets a little more difficult is when you have more than one dominant frequency. We find that actually on Japanese cars quite a bit. It'll drone at different RPMs, and so you need different sound cancellation devices, sometimes 2 or 3, to get rid of all the dominant frequencies. But it's not actually that difficult to do.
Let's talk about horsepower. In terms of, when you're making an exhaust, obviously you want to keep the power that you have, not reduce it, but sometimes it's possible to increase the power a little bit too. How do you approach that?
Back in the day, before fuel economy was such a big deal, stock mufflers, OE mufflers, tended to be pretty restrictive. And I remember bolting on just a free-flowing muffler, universal muffler, and picking up 40 horsepower. Like, those days are gone. Stock exhaust systems are usually pretty efficient. So you're most likely not going to pick up 40 horsepower unless you're doing something else to the vehicle, which is kind of a separate conversation. But clearly, if you're pushing more air, you probably want a larger diameter, and we can get into all that. But in a stock configuration, again, it really just comes down to where you're looking for the power. Typically, we can find a few ponies, as they say, throughout the whole RPM range. I think the thing that end users need to be the most careful about is whenever somebody quotes 1 horsepower number, and they say, well, we picked up 7 horsepower over stock, and frankly, we may even do that at times, you're not getting the whole story, because in almost every case, you can put a larger diameter on, and at red line, make more power. In some cases, maybe even significantly more power. But as I mentioned earlier, most of us don't drive at red line. I don't know that I've ever even taken my truck ever to red line. The majority of the time, I'm driving somewhere in the middle of the RPM range. So in a lot of cases, to pick up that extra horsepower up top, you're actually trading a loss down low. And of course, the companies that are trying to sell things to you aren't going to tell you, well, you're losing a ton of, at 2,000 RPM, and you're picking up a bunch at 7,000 RPM or whatever. So again, for us, it's about a consistent gain through the whole RPM range.
So the materials that you're using with the exhaust, what type of materials are going to be used in this exhaust?
Well, right now, for sure, we're going to offer something in T30 stainless. steel, which is kind of our wheelhouse. We were the first ones to use it, and now there are hundreds of companies out there using it. For 40 years, we've used T304 exclusively. So you won't find us using any inferior alloys like 400 series. Most of our competitors using stainless are using 400 series. That stuff rusts. It's, again, science will tell you that that stuff rusts, which is a little dubious when they're offering a lifetime warranty for something a material that is not rated to last a lifetime. The T304 will last a lifetime, and that's been proven over and over again, not just in our industry, but others. So we're big believers in T304. Of course, titanium, because of weight, is something that is of great interest. We've done a lot of work in titanium for our defense customers. We're confident in our ability to use titanium. Typically, the price versus the weight in our space is not really worth it. I think guys buy it for the bragging rights and stuff like that. It's quite possible we will offer something in titanium as well. Our tips will be offered in carbon fiber for either stainless or titanium systems. We'll do like a mirror finish or a polished finish, and then a black finish as well. So that's pretty much it for the materials.
Cool. So a couple different options for the tips.
Yes.
Nice, nice. Where can they find you?
www.borla.com is a good place, or you can call us at 877-GO-BORLA, and you should be able to reach us through one of those methods.
Cool. Hey, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, can't wait to get started.
Yeah, I want to hear what this car is going to sound like afterwards, because I think it sounds pretty good now, but a little bit more would be nice.
I really would like to get your sincere feedback on that, and anybody else that wants to let us know what they think. It's very important to us to get feedback from you guys, so would appreciate it.